My mom told me for 20 years my dad was dead, later I found he was alive and I have 50 siblings. Yep, you read that right. Buckle up because this is a wild one. Growing up, I always remember my mom being a single mom. I don't remember the exact moment she told me my dad was dead because I was so young. I have kind of always known. My mom told me that my dad died in a car accident 2 months before I was born. She said he was hit by a drunk semi-driver and was killed instantly on impact. Obviously, no one questions their own mother, especially at a young age. You believe their every word. This is what I always told people growing up if they asked about my dad. I would say I don't have a dad because he was killed. My mom, even on financial aid papers, claimed to be a widower. Whenever I asked questions, my mom said things that just made sense to me. Like, "Mom, why don't you have any photos of Dad?" She told me they all burned in a house fire started by the dryer right after I was born. This made sense because we had moved to a new house when I was very young. Also, again, why would you question your mom? I tried to research my dad and his death, but nothing ever came of it. I assumed because back in the day they didn't have computers or internet. If they didn't, it wasn't much. I later found out his name was Donald according to my birth certificate. The only reason I found this out was because I had to force my mom to give to me so I could get my license at 16. A lot of the times I tried to ask more questions when I got older, but my mom became visibly angry when I did this. Eventually I just stopped because I didn't want to get yelled at anymore. This strained our relationship growing up. My mom and I were never really close. I tried asking family members questions, and literally no one, even my grandma, knew. My mom and grandma are super close, so this was very odd to me. The last time I asked my grandma before I finally asked my mom for the last time, my grandma said, "I don't know who or where your dad is, but I know your mother loves you." Holy crap, when my grandma said that, I got goosebumps and knew something was very wrong. Fast forward to when I was 19, I started to see a therapist after being a victim of attempted kidnapping and diagnosed with PTSD. My therapist told me to take a DNA test to possibly find out more about my dad's side. This way I could still find out info without having to ask my mom and making her angry again. I asked my mom to pay for the DNA test because I was a poor college student at the time. She right away got so mad and yelled at me. She claimed that the government was going to clone my DNA and sell it. So I never ended up taking it. After that I didn't bring it up again. Fast forward to when I was 20 years old, around Thanksgiving time. My 3 friends and I had a fun day of baking cookies and talking all day long. Until I brought up the stories of my past and my dead father. I had a conspiracy theory I made up about my life totally as a joke. I told my therapist once and now my friends. The theory: what if my mom had a one-night stand with a rock star/musician and got pregnant with me? She never was able to find him again, so she couldn't tell him. My mom is considered the golden child in her siblings. So in order to remain in the good graces of my grandparents, she told them she eloped and got married. Then got pregnant with me, and shortly after my dad died in a car accident right before I was born. Would make total sense why none of my family met him or knew him if it was a short relationship. My theory wasn't too off. But this is what really went down. My friends all told me that all my stories didn't really add up. A lot of them said they seemed odd but never said anything. My friends paid for me to take a DNA test finally. I took a DNA test and then confronted my mom about it. She finally confessed that she always wanted to have a child but never wanted to get married. She found a clinic that would do sperm donor babies. She had 2 miscarriages before me, all with different donors. The 3rd time she got pregnant with me. The name Donald came from donor. There was no dad that died in a car accident, all lies. With my results from the DNA test, I mostly just had first cousin matches and didn't think anything of it. But what I didn't know was the first cousins and half-siblings share a similar amount of DNA. A few weeks later, a girl messaged me claiming to be my half-sister. She was able to answer all my questions I always had. The reason my mom never could answer those questions weren't because she was upset he died, but because she truly didn't know. The girl who messages was correct that she was my half-sister. She introduced in a group chat to the other siblings. This was 3 years ago, and we only had 30 half-siblings at the time. Now we are up to 50 and expecting more to still pop up. We are from all over the country. We will never truly know how many of us there is because of how messed up the donor industry is. As for my dad being alive, we found this out recently. After years of research and sleuthing, my sisters found our donor through leads from the DNA test. We have reached out to him and he is grateful to know about us. We have limited contact due to his family and his horrible wife. His wife wants to keep her good reputation. Like helping families get pregnant is a bad thing. Partly I think his wife is homophobic. His wife is very religious and most of our siblings' parents are same-sex couples. Our donor never told his family about being a sperm donor in college because of his extremely Catholic family. I wish he would tell them and we could meet our cousins, aunts, uncles, and grandparents. But it's unlikely he ever will. He talks to us on rarely to say happy birthday or Merry Christmas, but that is mostly it. Thankfully, he was able to give us updated, correct medical information. There has been a few donor child stories on the THT podcast, but my story is a bit different from what I have heard before on the pod. Sadly, this is common in the donor children community. Many parents lie to their children with no planning to tell their kids. In the 90s, no one ever expected that DNA tests would be what it is today. Update: my mom told me for 20 years my dad was dead. Later I found he was alive and I have 50 siblings. Hello friends. I wanted to update you all about my story. I was 20 when I discovered that I had 30 siblings. I recently turned 25, and now we have 54 siblings. We are likely to find more during the holidays, as many people receive DNA tests as gifts or buy them on sale at that time. Unfortunately, we will never truly know how many of us are out there. The donor industry is extremely sketchy and doesn't keep accurate records of live births, allowing them to sell more. I got married in September, and we just received our photos back. 4 of my sisters were my bridesmaids, and one of my brothers attended as well. Most of them drove between 7 to 13 hours. And some even flew across the country to be there for the wedding weekend. This experience was something I never dreamed of as a little girl, but I am so happy I got to share my wedding day with my siblings by my side. My friends, who bought me the DNA test, mentioned in the original post, were also at the wedding and met my siblings for the first time. It was a full circle, surreal moment. Now on to the real tea of the evening. My family members still had no idea about any of this. Literally none of them. My wedding was my debut, you could say, of my mom's long-held secrets. I was tired of bearing her burden because it was never mine to hold. The wedding program included my siblings' names and labeled them as sister of the bride or brother of the bride. My mom had refused to give a speech at the wedding for some reason. I told her that a parent typically does this and that the groom's father was giving one. She still refused, so I told her my sisters would instead. She said that was fine, but I don't know what she expected them to say since they weren't going to lie for her too. They checked with me first to see if it was okay to talk about the siblings and how we found each other. I said, fuck it. Do it. During the speeches, it felt like dropping a bomb and then walking away. I got to sit back, grab some popcorn, but no literally, because we had popcorn as a cocktail snack, and watched the show unfold. My 3 sisters gave a speech together, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. They talked about how we all took DNA tests and how I was found. The looks on my aunts, uncles, and older cousins' faces were priceless. I am so glad we have a videographer and should be getting those back soon too. They were in utter shock and disbelief. Their reactions were almost as entertaining as the speech itself. It felt incredible to finally be able to speak openly about my life. Of course, I noticed a lot of whispering and strange glances afterward, but that was no longer my problem to fix. Thankfully, my narcissistic mother managed to keep it together during the wedding, of course, because she has to maintain a front for the world. However, the following week, once we were back home, she was absolutely awful to me, and she still mostly is. Ultimately, I believe it was 1000% worth it, and I would do it 1,000,000 times over again. The truth always comes out. Since we found our donor and have some contact with him, I sent him photos of the siblings and me from the wedding. He was thrilled for us, wished us the best, and said we all looked beautiful. I replied, "Thank you so much. I guess we have some good genes." My friend and I met Morgan and Lauren at a live show, and saying it was one of the best moments of my life is an understatement. Thanks for tuning in to today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button to show your support. Love diving into more stories like these? Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon so you never miss out on the latest uploads. And hey, if you know someone who'd love these stories, be sure to share this video with them. Stay tuned for more amazing stories coming your way soon.